mounted a proper bid that finessed to an extent the problem that every bidder had with Econet Wireless and Mr. Strive Naziiwa.
So Delta State now, including Akwa Ibom and Lagos, now became part of the party involved.
They sold their shares to Celtel. I mean, there was a 65% bid. So in the sense that there were a number of shares that couldn't be tendered, Delta State got more of their shares off into the offer than other people did.
So what we'll say by implication, there was a kind of Delta State under James Ibori was trying to confrontation involved in, well, V-Mobile, Celtel, CDC matter.
Well, I don't think it really, that didn't enter into it. Like Ibori was well in the background. He was not really involved in any of these machinations.
Why would he plead guilty if he was not involved?
I don't understand it. I don't know. I can't speak for him.
Wow. But because you're at the center, you knew he was not involved at all.
Not involved in the M&A process, if I can call it that. He was never present in any activity, any discussions with me, with McCann, with other lawyers, the other bidders, as best I knew it, never present.
But you also pleaded guilty.
To my knowledge.
You also pleaded guilty.
I did, yes, because I had monumental discussions with my solicitor and barrister about that issue. Before Christmas, I pled on the 20th of December of 2010, and the level of resistance from me was incredible, but they backed me into a corner, and I pled. And I'll tell you, over the Christmas period, I thought about it more, and we must have had 20 hours of meetings with my solicitors, with Saunders Law, telling them that this was totally wrong, that I wanted to recant. And they pursued me aggressively throughout this whole period of time that, Mr. Kinch would back away, he would vacate, he would be embarrassed is the legal term that's used, and he would have been embarrassed because I don't know, what the advice was that he gave to me, or what happened, but it was incredible. At the end of the day, I mean, he mentioned to me that if I pled guilty, I would get 16 to 18 months and likely suspended. It didn't happen.
Wow. So, if you were to look back now, would you have said, I wish I had not pleaded guilty to a case I did not know anything about?
Oh, absolutely. And I wish I had proper defense. And there were many issues that we were trying to get a proper forensic M&A report from a city firm, and we had long discussions with Moore Stevens. They would have done a thorough job of this entire M&A exercise, and it would have shown the legitimacy of our arranger agreement, plus the fact that we were very good at what we did. We were very successful for our clients. We achieved a return, a yield to our clients, Akwa Ibom and Delta State, twice what they otherwise would have earned without our involvement.
Why was Delta State singled out in a transaction that probably involved 3 states, Akwa Ibom and Lagos State? Why was Delta State, where Ibori was sitting as the governor, singled out? Why did they actually go for Ibori and not Delta, and not Akwa Ibom or Lagos State governor?
I can't speak to that. I can surmise, I can guess, I can speculate, but I can't speak to that.
Let's read into your mind your speculation. Can you speculate? Let's see. Why do you think?
I don't know, but
speculate.
I do know.
Let's see. Probably you could help us here.
They were after him.
Well, they were after him. I mean, there was a political falling out in the background as between Mr. Obasanjo. But we're getting into a ground of speculation. I mean, there was a third-term ambition of Mr. Obasanjo at the time. There was a confrontation between Mr. Ibori and Mr. Obasanjo on that. There was a great amount of controversy. And what happens is that if people don't play ball, sometimes the president of Nigeria will use the EFCC as a political instrument.
Wow.
And that happens.
Political instrument against his own citizen.
Yes.
So you will say from your speculation that James Ibori was a victim of political gain.
In certain senses, yes, but that's a little reach too. I'm no expert in Nigerian politics.
Okay, let me put on hold there. Let me come back to the council in the House.
Mr. De Boer needs some legal advice.
Yes, I wanted to say this, that, look, he pleaded guilty to a genuine transaction. James Ibori pleaded guilty to a transaction that he was not financially involved. Goyo pleaded guilty. Web of guilt.
The most amazing thing is that Mr. De Boer said they were going to get or were awaiting a report which would prove the legitimacy of the entire transaction. And yet he pleaded guilty. I'd love to have seen such a report. And I don't know, is it in existence, Mr. De Boer, this report?
Well, the point was, Moore Stevens wanted a £45,000 retainer to prepare the report, and I was on legal aid, and the Legal Service Commission outright refused. We went back to Moore Stevens and reworked the mandate, and renegotiated it to £36,000, and it was outright refused again. Right. We went to the Legal Services Appeal Tribunal, and I've got to say I've never seen an appeal tribunal and the solicitors in it as biased as that. They were going to refuse even before they heard the evidence. And well, I prepared a bundle where I have the transcripts from those hearings and the presentations made, and it makes for abysmal reading. And that was my experience on many occasions.
I'd like to see that bundle, actually, because it seems like you were defeated by the administration of justice in Britain refusing you funding for something that could have effectively proved not only your innocence, but the innocence of all the parties involved.
Well, absolutely. We had massive discussions about that with my barrister of the day, Mr. Christopher Kinch. And Kinch's response, when we sort of downscaled it to a letter, and the letter was used for mitigation purposes, not for the trial because I pleaded, he says, we don't need a Jaguar report when a Ford Mondeo report would do.
But it didn't do.
The bus.
It didn't do, did it? That's the whole point.
I need to release Mr. De Boer. We're going to bring you back at some point because hopefully James Ibori's defense counsel and family members are probably watching this program. They will want to send a representation to this program at some point because the whole thing is looking like it does seem we're looking at going, but it's the web. But now we cannot get full detail of what happened that involves him, because these people are not here to speak, but they can actually speak for him here. But it does seem from what the boy has said that it's a web of political manipulation, financial transaction involving CDC, defeat, police, and everybody.
There's another factor, which is that the prosecution made claims about the sale price of and the bidding prices in V-Mobile, which, as I understand it, were essentially just made up. So the whole case was based on a false claims made by the prosecution about the figures. Now, I didn't appear in that case, so I can't go into any more detail, but what little I know about it makes me even more surprised that people pleaded guilty.
I can make comment on that.
Yeah.
I mean, the prosecution, Sasha Wass, said that there was a binding offer at $8 a share. Nonsense. There were no offers. There were no binding offers. There were a lot of offers made, but none of them ever closed because of several difficulties. And one of the key difficulties always was the intervention of Econet Wireless International and Strive Mazi-Iwa in terms of he litigated and issued a writ to anybody that showed up. And most of these bids went one way or another, and they dropped.
Yeah.
And what is
So-
what is an $8 bid?
so-
What is an $8 bid that gets dropped worth? It's not worth anything.
Exactly. So the truth is, in V-Mobile, there was no actual binding bid,
No.
which was the foundation for the whole prosecution. And it just didn't exist.
Exactly.
It was pie in the sky. So this needs to be looked at.
All right, Deborah, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Barcelona on the program today.
No problem.
We'll be calling on you at some point as Ben TV looks deep into this web of issues that has dragged so many people down. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Barcelona. Let's come to, in one word, how will you describe this?
The case, I've been in this job 36 years. I've never seen such blatant corruption, and I've never seen such a blatant cover-up by the prosecution. The prosecutors in this case misled the Court of Appeal, they misled 2 judges at Southwark Crown Court, they misled the public, they misled the defence, and they were about to have a trial continuing to mislead everyone. And the fact is, Mr. Gohill was innocent of the charge of perverting the course of justice, and they knew that he was innocent.
Would you say that those prosecutors and the investigators also may have misled 170 million Nigerians as well?
Yes, on the V-Mobile case, as you've just heard, it was based upon there being a binding bid, and there was no binding bid. There were a number of bids which fell away, and so the whole prosecution, the basis for it, was just fake, basically.
Okay, let's read. What next now?
So what next? So now that they've dropped the case against Mr. Gohill, we are going to try and reopen his original plea of guilty and his original conviction on the basis that there was corruption at the heart of both of those cases. So our next step is to litigate that before the Court of Appeal.
Any chances?
Very much so. Very much so.
By the way, how did you come to uncover these plots that previous QCs have failed to uncover?
I think the key is you just keep digging away, you just keep asking the right questions, you never take no for an answer. When you know it's going on and they say it's not going on, you know there's something there, you've just got to keep digging. And we kept on digging and we kept on digging. We forced the prosecution to employ a 3rd barrister called a disclosure junior, and the disclosure junior is somewhat separate from the prosecutors. So we started asking the disclosure barrister the questions, and we started receiving information, which finally broke the case.
If you had been involved from the start, would he have turned out this way?
He would never, first of all, Mr. Gohill would never have pleaded guilty, because there was no case against him.
I wish I could ask Gohill a question here. He's seated right in the studio. I wish I could ask him to say, Gohill, would you have said, I wish I had met Stephen? I wish I had met him. Would you have said that? Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I can't go any further than this. But this is the first part. Trust me, we're going to have to bring you back. Beyond this case, we want to follow you to further uncover things that have been hidden, so that Nigerians that have been deceived by what you've said will know. I need to go now. Thank you
Believe
so much
me,
for being part
there's
of
a
the
lot
program.
more to come.
Thank you so much. All right, I need to go now. My name is Tunde Alabi. I've got